Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today's story is one that will leave you thinking about how sometimes the most ordinary people can see what everyone else misses. It's about a tired single dad who worked as a janitor, and the moment he noticed something that a room full of doctors had completely overlooked. What happened next saved a young boy's life in just a matter of minutes. It was a cold morning in the city hospital, the kind of morning where the halls smelled strongly of disinfectant and fresh coffee from the nurses' station. Doctors rushed back and forth, nurses checked charts, and machines beeped quietly in the background. For most people, it was just another busy day, but for Michael Carter, it was already a long one. Michael was a single dad in his mid-30s. Every morning before sunrise, he dropped his 7-year-old daughter Lily off at school and headed straight to the hospital where he worked as a janitor. The job didn't pay much, but it kept a roof over their heads and food on the table. Michael's life hadn't always been this hard. Years ago, he had dreamed of becoming a nurse. He had even completed 2 years of medical training before life suddenly changed. When Lily's mother walked out, leaving Michael alone with a newborn baby, he had no choice but to quit school and take the first job he could find. That job was cleaning hospital floors, but even though he wore a janitor's uniform now, Michael never stopped paying attention to the things he had learned. Whenever he cleaned patient rooms, he quietly observed the monitors, the medications, and the procedures. Over the years, he had learned more than most people realized. Still, to everyone else, he was just the janitor. That morning, the hospital was buzzing with unusual excitement. Word had spread that one of the country's most powerful billionaires had rushed his son into the emergency department. Daniel Whitmore, the name alone carried weight. He owned multiple tech companies and had appeared on magazine covers around the world. People said he could buy entire buildings without blinking, but right now, none of that mattered, because his 10-year-old son, Ethan, was lying unconscious in the hospital's intensive care unit. Doctors surrounded the boy's bed, speaking quickly and checking charts. He collapsed suddenly at home, one doctor explained. No history of heart disease, no trauma, nothing. Another doctor frowned at the monitor. Vitals are unstable. Daniel Whitmore stood near the door, pale and silent. For a man used to controlling everything, this was a nightmare he couldn't fix with money. Meanwhile, down the hallway, Michael pushed his cleaning cart slowly past the ICU rooms. He had no reason to stop, but something caught his attention. Through the glass window of the room, he saw the group of doctors gathered around the bed. Curious, Michael paused for just a moment. The boy on the bed looked incredibly pale. Tubes ran from his arms, and machines beeped steadily beside him. One doctor shook his head. We're running every test. Blood work is normal. CT scan is clear. Another added quietly, but he's getting worse. Michael's eyes moved instinctively to the monitor. His cleaning cart stood forgotten beside him. Something about the numbers didn't sit right. The boy's heart rate was fluctuating, but not in a random way. Michael leaned slightly closer to the glass. There was a pattern. Years ago, during his nursing training, he had studied cardiac rhythms for weeks. Most people would just see numbers jumping up and down, but Michael saw something else. A subtle irregular rhythm, paired with shallow breathing. His heart started beating faster. No, he whispered under his breath. Inside the room, the doctors were discussing possible neurological causes, but Michael had seen something like this before during his training. Sudden collapse. Unstable vitals. Normal scans. There was one rare possibility, and if he was right, they didn't have much time. Michael hesitated. Who was he to interrupt a room full of specialists? He was just the janitor. But then he looked at the boy again. The child couldn't speak for himself. Michael took a deep breath. He knocked lightly on the door. One of the doctors turned, clearly annoyed. Yes. Michael stepped in carefully. I'm sorry, sir. I didn't mean to interrupt. The doctor frowned. This is a restricted area. Michael nodded quickly. I understand. I just noticed something on the monitor. The room went silent. Another doctor looked at him skeptically. You noticed something? Michael felt every eye on him. He swallowed. I used to study nursing, he said quietly. I might be wrong, but the heart rhythm looks like it could be related to potassium imbalance or a rare arrhythmia triggered by electrolyte shifts. The doctors exchanged glances. One of them said sharply, his blood work is normal. Michael nodded. Yes, sir. But sometimes potassium levels shift rapidly after blood tests, especially if the body is under stress or if there's a hidden metabolic issue. Daniel Whitmore suddenly stepped forward, his voice was tense. What are you saying? Michael looked at the monitor again. I'm saying if it's what I think it is, the heart could stop without warning. The room fell completely silent. The lead cardiologist walked closer to the monitor, studying the rhythm again. For the first time, uncertainty crossed his face. Run another electrolyte panel, he ordered. A nurse rushed out of the room. Michael stepped back, embarrassed. I'm sorry if I overstepped. No one responded. Minutes passed slowly. Daniel Whitmore paced the floor anxiously. Finally, the nurse returned with the results. Her eyes widened. Doctor, potassium levels are dropping fast. The cardiologist's head snapped up. How fast? Dangerously low. The room erupted into action. Prepare potassium infusion now. Monitor cardiac rhythm closely. Machines beeped faster as doctors rushed around the bed. Michael stood frozen near the door. Within minutes, the medication was administered. Everyone watched the monitor. For a moment, the heart rhythm continued its unstable pattern. Then slowly, the numbers began to stabilize. The irregular spikes smoothed out. The beeping became steady. A nurse looked up in disbelief. It's stabilizing. Another doctor checked Ethan's pulse. Heart rhythm returning to normal. Daniel Whitmore gripped the edge of the bed, staring at the monitor. The lead cardiologist exhaled deeply. If we hadn't corrected that. He didn't finish the sentence. Everyone knew what it meant. Daniel turned slowly toward Michael. For the first time, the billionaire really looked at him, the janitor standing quietly near the door. You saw this from the hallway? Daniel asked. Michael nodded awkwardly. I've seen similar patterns during training years ago. The cardiologist spoke honestly. We were focused on neurological causes. We didn't catch the rhythm pattern. Daniel walked toward Michael. The room grew quiet again. You just saved my son's life, he said. Michael shook his head quickly. The doctors did the real work. Daniel's voice was firm. No. You spoke up when no one else did. At that moment, one of the monitors made a soft sound. Ethan's eyes fluttered slightly. A nurse leaned closer. I think he's waking up. Daniel rushed to his son's side, his face filled with relief. The doctors continued monitoring the boy carefully. Meanwhile, Michael quietly picked up his cleaning cart. He tried to slip out of the room unnoticed, but Daniel called out, wait. Michael stopped. The billionaire walked over again. What's your name? Michael Carter. Daniel nodded slowly. Well, Michael Carter. I don't forget people who save my family. Michael gave a small, humble smile. I'm just glad he's okay. Later that evening, after finishing his shift, Michael walked to the school to pick up Lily. She ran toward him happily. Daddy. He lifted her into his arms. How was school? Good. Did you have a boring day cleaning floors again? Michael chuckled softly. You could say that. But across the city, in the quiet hospital room, Daniel Whitmore sat beside his recovering son, and he couldn't stop thinking about the janitor who had seen what the experts had missed. Sometimes heroes don't wear white coats, sometimes they push a cleaning cart down a hospital hallway, and sometimes, the smallest voice in the room is the one that saves a life. If this story touched your heart, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who believes that kindness and courage can come from anyone. Because stories like this remind us that true heroes can be found in the most unexpected places, and we'll see you in the next story.